Hey, everyone, and welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're tackling a story that honestly feels like it's straight out of a spy thriller.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're going to be going deep into the Middle East, specifically into the world of Captagon. Now, I know some of you might have heard of this. It's a potent illegal amphetamine
Yeah, a powerful one.
that is fueling an absolutely massive crisis. And we're not talking small scale here, folks. We're talking billions of dollars.
Millions.
Millions of pills, smuggling routes that stretch across continents. It's a huge problem.
It really is. And what's even more interesting is the possibility.
Possibility.
Yeah, the possibility that a very powerful government is involved in all of this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A government that's already dealing with a brutal civil war and desperately needs cash.
So we're talking about...
We're going to be investigating the Syrian regime led by Bashar al-Assad
Okay.
and analyzing whether they're actually profiting from this whole illegal Captagon trade. And if that turns out to be true, we need to understand what it means for the region and the world. That's a big if, but that's what we're here to figure out.
Exactly.
And we've got a ton of sources for this dive. We've got in-depth reports from the BBC, accounts from smugglers and dealers themselves.
Wow. First-hand accounts.
We've got court documents.
Court documents.
Yeah, and expert analysis from people who've been following this story for years.
So this is going to be a long one.
It is. It's a lot to unpack. So yeah, buckle up, everyone.
Let's start with the human impact.
Okay.
One of our sources, a BBC documentary, tells the story of a 19-year-old named Yasser, whose life was completely derailed by Captagon.
19, that's so young.
His weight just plummeted. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat.
Couldn't eat at 19.
Couldn't eat. His whole life revolved around getting his next fix.
Man, that's just heartbreaking. And I imagine his story is not unique.
Not at all. The same documentary highlighted a truly shocking statistic.
Oh.
40%. 40% of the inmates in Jordan's Bahrain jail are there on drug charges.
40%.
40%. And many are related to Captagon.
Wow, that's a huge number. That really shows just how widespread this crisis is.
It does. And Jordan is considered a key transit point for Captagon being smuggled from Syria to its biggest market, Saudi Arabia.
Right, Saudi Arabia. So this flood of Captagon is overwhelming Jordan's law enforcement, and it's having a really devastating impact on their society.
Now let's shift our focus to Syria.
Okay.
On the surface, the government claims to be cracking down on this Captagon trade.
Right.
They've got televised announcements. They've got these high-profile raids.
Yeah, they're putting on a show.
They are, but here's the interesting part.
What's that?
On the same day that the Syrian government was broadcasting these anti-drug efforts, a news report popped up online about a crashed pickup truck.
A truck?
Yeah, a pickup truck. It was carrying 2 tons of hashish and 3 million Captagon pills.
Wow. So are they really fighting the drug trade, or are they just trying to look good for the international community?
Exactly. It makes you wonder. And here's where it gets even more intriguing.
More intriguing.
The 2 men in that crashed truck,
Yeah.
they were brothers, Samuel and Hossam Zarek.
Okay.
And they were...
You're right. I mean, it's not a stretch to think that bigger players might be involved.
Exactly.
So we've got a potential smuggling route, a crashed truck full of drugs, and whispers of involvement from people connected to the government. But why? Why would the Assad regime risk so much by getting involved in something like this?
To understand that, we need to look at the bigger picture. Syria has been devastated by this civil war that's been going on for over a decade.
Right, over a decade.
Their economy is in ruins, and the regime is desperate for cash to fund their war efforts and to stay in power.
So the Captagon trade, with all its profits, offers a way out.
Exactly. It's a classic case of follow the money. If we can trace the money, we might uncover a whole web of corruption that leads right to the top.
Okay, so it's a money thing, but how deep does this corruption go? Is it just a few bad apples at the top, or is it more widespread than that?
Well, a former Syrian army officer actually told the BBC that officers and men were resorting to smuggling because they were so desperate.
Desperate for money.
For money. They were allegedly using 4th Division vehicles.
Hold on, 4th Division. That name rings a bell.
That's Mar al-Allah's unit. Bashar al-Assad's brother.
Oh, right, the elite unit.
They were using these vehicles to transport everything, weapons, drugs, anything they could get their hands on.
So they were exploiting their positions for personal gain.
It's a disturbing thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really makes you question the stability of the entire regime and whether they can actually combat the Captagon trade from within.
This is getting heavier by the minute.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that a government could be so involved in something like this, but the evidence is piling up.
It really is. And our investigation is about to take a turn. We're heading to government-held Syria, to the town of Suwaida. We're going to uncover the story of Raji Fallout, a militia leader with alleged ties to the Captagon trade.
A militia leader. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
Get ready,
Yeah.
because this is where things get real. Welcome back.
Now, before we jump into this whole Raji Fallout situation in Soweto, I want to kind of take a step back and talk about the people on the ground, the individuals caught up in all of this.
You mean like the average person?
Exactly. We've talked about high-level corruption, smuggling operations, but what about the average Joe?
Well, a Jordanian military intelligence officer actually gave some interesting insights.
Okay.
He was talking about how the smugglers are often young men, 18 to 30 years old, desperate for money for a way out.
Makes sense. I mean, they're easy targets.
Exactly. They're lured in with promises of quick cash, a way to escape poverty.
It's really tragic when you think about it. These young people are being exploited. They're pawns in a dangerous game.
Yeah, it really highlights the fact that this isn't just a law enforcement issue.
Right.
This is a socioeconomic problem.
Right.
It's rooted in poverty and lack of opportunity.
And even with the Jordanian army trying to crack down, the smugglers are finding ways to adapt.
Oh, yeah, they're getting creative.
Like those Captagon pills hidden in the wooden panels.
Yeah.
They're always changing tactics, always one step ahead.
Well, the profits are so high that they can afford to be innovative, even corrupt officials to look the other way.
And speaking of corruption, where does Lebanon fit into all of this? We know they're trying to combat the Captagon production, especially in the Bekaa Valley.
Right, the Bekaa Valley. That's a notorious hub for drug production.
And why is that?
Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, the militant group.
That's the one. They've got deep roots in that region. And our sources suggest they're using the Captagon trade to finance their operations.
So we're talking about a powerful militant group potentially profiting from this drug trade.
It's a dangerous situation. Imagine a well-funded Hezbollah with even more influence in Lebanon. That's not good for anyone.
So this Arab League decision to readmit Syria, is that a good thing or a bad thing in this context?
It's hard to say. Some people see it as an opportunity to engage with the Syrian government, to pressure them to take action against the Captagon trade.
Okay.
But others are skeptical. They think the regime might just use this to gain legitimacy without actually making any real changes.
Right, like Joel Rayburn said, it's like contracting with the arsonist to put out the fire.
Exactly. It's a gamble, for sure.
So how can we hold them accountable? What can the international community do?
It's tricky. Targeting production and export, that requires cooperation from the Syrian government, which, given their alleged involvement, is a long shot.
So are we stuck? There's nothing we can do.
Not necessarily. There are other options. Sanctions can target individuals and entities involved in the trade, and diplomatic pressure can be applied to countries supplying the raw materials.
So hit them where it hurts, their wallets and their reputation.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the people caught in the middle, those who are already addicted.
Right. What about them?
We need to support organizations providing treatment and rehabilitation. Give these individuals a chance to rebuild their lives.
So sanctions, pressure, community engagement, treatment programs, is that enough to dismantle this multi-billion-dollar industry?
It's a tough fight, no doubt.
Yeah.
But every shipment intercepted, every network disrupted, it all chips away at their foundation.
Right. Every little bit helps.
Exactly. But we need to remember the bigger picture. This isn't just about stopping pills. It's about addressing the root causes. Poverty, lack of opportunity, the things that drive people to this in the first place.
So it's a long game. It's about changing mindsets, changing systems, and creating a better future for those who are most vulnerable.
Now let's get back to Raji Fallout, this militia leader in Soweto.
Yeah, the one with the supposed ties to the Captagon trade.
In 2022, there was an uprising against him.
Against Fallout.
Yeah, and when they overran his bases, they found some interesting things. A Captagon pill press,
Oh, wow. So he was making it.
bags of drugs ready for distribution. But the real evidence was his mobile phone.
His phone, what was on it?
Messages.
Yeah.
Messages that linked him directly to the Captagon trade.
Like what?
Conversations with a guy in Lebanon, a guy called Abu Hamza.
Abu Hamza.
Yeah, they were talking about moving factory machinery from Lebanon to Syria.
So he was literally importing the equipment to make Captagon. Unbelievable.
And guess what? Abu Hamza's real name is Hussein Riyad Faytruni, and he's suspected of being affiliated with Hezbollah.
Hold on. So now we have a Syrian militia leader, a drug dealer, and Hezbollah all potentially connected. This is getting out of hand.
It's a tangled web, for sure. And it raises serious questions about how deep Hezbollah is involved in all of this.
This is a lot to take in.
It is. And we're not done yet. Next, we're going international.
International?
We're heading to Europe. A German investigation uncovered a network that reveals just how global this trade really is.
All right, we're back. And this Captagon thing, it's like a real-life spy movie now, you know?
It really is.
We've got these corrupt militia leaders, Hezbollah is possibly involved, and now we're heading to Europe. This is getting crazy.
Yeah, it really shows you just how connected everything is, you know? This German investigation is going to blow your mind.
All right, lay it on me. What did the Germans find?
Well, they started with a seizure in Romania. 370 kilos of amphetamine, hidden in a container shipped from Latakia, Syria.
Latakia. That's the port controlled by the 4th Division, right? The one we suspect is involved in all this.
That's the one.
Okay, so we've got Captagon being shipped from a Syrian port controlled by a potentially corrupt military unit ending up in Romania. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and get this. The investigators traced the shipment back to a trader based in Germany, a guy named Mohammed.
Mohammed? And how did they find him?
Phone surveillance, hidden microphones, the whole 9 yards. They went all out.
Wow. This is serious stuff. So what else did they find?
Shell companies, encrypted communications, money laundering. This was a massive operation.
I mean, the amount of effort and resources they put into this, it's incredible. You got to wonder just how much money they're making.
And remember that second shipment they caught? The one disguised as Lebanese soap?
Yeah.
It had over a ton of hashish and 4 million Captagon pills.
4 million. Jeez.
This wasn't some small-time operation. This was the big leagues.
So they caught this Mohammed guy and took down his whole network, right? Case closed.
Well, not exactly. One of the guys they arrested actually confessed. Said the Syrian army's 4th Division was involved.
What? Really?
They were demanding $250,000 per container to let the drugs through Latakia.
$250,000 just to turn a blind eye. That's insane. That's just pure corruption.
And there's more. This guy also revealed that they were getting the raw materials to make Captagon from China and India.
So we're talking about a global supply chain here. This is huge.
It is. And remember Mohammed, the trader in Germany?
Yeah.
Well, he was bragging about doing business with Mudar Shakat.
Who's that?
He's a relative of Bashar al-Assad's sister.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Hafez Munsar al-Assad, the president's cousin.
So he was literally boasting about his connections to the Assad family. What was he thinking?
I thought he was untouchable. Being connected to the Assads, he thought he was above the law.
That's arrogance, pure and simple. But what this shows, I think, is that this isn't just some random criminal operation. This is potentially tied to a regime that's clinging to power, no matter what the cost.
Yeah, it's not just about making money. It's about survival.
So where do we go from here? What's the solution to all of this?
Well, the first step is admitting we have a problem. We can't just ignore this and hope it goes away.
So what can we do? We've talked about sanctions, military intervention, supporting local communities. Is any of that enough?
There's no easy answer. It's going to require a lot of different things working together.
Like what?
We need to strengthen border controls around the world, invest in technology, share intelligence, and train people to stop the smuggling.
That makes sense. But what about the people who are already addicted?
We need to help them get treatment, rehabilitate them. Addiction is a disease, and we need to treat it like one.
And what about the root of the problem? You know, the poverty, the desperation, that's what drives people to this in the first place.
We have to create opportunities, invest in economic development, education, job creation, give people a real chance at a better life.
So it's about changing the whole system.
So it's about changing the world, really.
Well, that's a pretty tall order.
It is, but we can't give up. We have to keep fighting, expose the corruption, demand justice, and work for a better future.
You know, this whole deep dive, it's been a real eye-opener. It's a complex issue with a lot of moving parts. But one thing's for sure, this Captagon trade, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And we can't just ignore it.
We can't. It's affecting too many lives.
So to everyone listening, stay informed, keep asking questions, and demand action. We can make a difference, but only if we work